Well, we thought we'd shoot a quick interview with Steve Williams. And Steve's a member of our Cadence Superteam. We've been friends for a long time, haven't we, Steve?
A very long time, James.
Fished together for a long time. And you've just won the Bewdley Float League, haven't you?
Yeah, absolutely. I made up, over the moon about it.
Well done, mate.
As a river angler, you know.
Absolutely brilliant. So what I wanted to do was just do a quick interview. It's been terrible weather all week, hasn't it? Since you won on Wednesday.
Very, very wet Wednesday. Absolutely soaked through, but obviously winning the league, you know, I shook that off quite quickly and got stuck into a couple of beers, you know.
But what we thought we'd do is we'd come to, it's kind of our favourite pub, isn't it, really?
Oh, yeah,
It's a bit of a retreat, really, when the weather's bad. All the rivers are flooded. So we thought we'd come here, grab a beautiful pint. It's the Coach and Horses near Weather Oak.
That's true, yeah. Many plans are hatched here in the fishing game, yeah.
Absolutely. So just sampling a beautiful pint. Cheers, everybody.
Yeah, cheers, cheers.
Cheers, Steve.
Pint of hooky.
So, Steve, tell us about the Bewdley Float League. Obviously, it's a really competitive league. How long have you been fishing it?
I've been fishing it about 6 years. Obviously, it's a Wednesday league and it's over 6 rounds. So when I was at work, I couldn't do it. I envied the people that could fish Wednesdays. Yeah. And when I left work, I really fancied focusing on trying to win it or trying to do well in it.
Well, you've got a fantastic trophy. What a trophy that is. And just looking at the names, back in 2017, Dave Harrell won it.
I know, yeah.
There's been Dave Foxall, Tony Morton, Joe Holloway, Billy Neath, Dave Foxall, again, Jeff Briley. So I think that just highlights the quality of what's needed to win this.
That's right. Tremendous anglers. And just quickly to say, a lot of those anglers that still fish, the likes of Dave Foxall and Jeff Briley, have been very helpful. When I first started fishing there, helping me with the pegs, because it's such a diverse venue.
Yeah.
You know, you've got some pegs 25 foot deep and others a few pegs away are only 2 foot you could walk across.
Absolutely, and I suppose it's varied within the pegs along the stretch, but also in the conditions that you fish.
Exactly, exactly.
Well done, Steve. So I think a good way to do this would to be break down the matches. Right. So how many matches are actually in the series?
There's 6 matches,
okay,
and you can drop one, so 5 to count.
And you know, you've obviously evolved your own style and tactics.
Yes, yeah.
Is there any way that you could sort of explain what your general thinking is when it comes to approaching a league like this?
Right, well, probably coming from a team fishing approach, I try my best to feel my way into each match. I don't draw a peg and think it's a chub peg and just go all out. Yeah. Because given the league situation, especially if you drop one, which my first match was a dropper, you can end up having 2 bad results and basically wipe your league out. So I tend to feel my way in, very often targeting £3 an hour is going to give you £15 if I've done the maths right. Yeah. And any species will do. If that means catching £6 of bleak in the first 2 hours, or very often a mixture of bleak and dace with the odd perch that you get just to bump your weight up a bit here and there, and you get a sense to how the river's fishing then. If you feel your way in, 5 hours is a long time and a lot of people go to bull at a gate with it, you know.
Oh, I think that's really sensible, and like you say, probably your experience of your team fishing over the years has really helped. Yeah. And we'll probably see it when we look at the different rounds that you've fished, in terms of you've probably drawn a mix of good pegs, average pegs and poor pegs, and you've obviously managed to get a result on each one. That's right, yeah. So should we talk about the first round, which was the one that you dropped?
Yeah, the first round I drew down the bottom of Winterdyne, peg 112, not one that I particularly like. I've drawn it a couple of times and never really got to grips with it. Okay. You're set back in a bit of a bay, and the bay can be full of minnows, which can be a nuisance, and you need to reach the flow to get into the dace, which means you've got to, with a whip, you've got to fish quite long, which slows you down. Anyway, I had a bit of a sort of indifferent match, caught a bit of this and a bit of that, and ended up with just over £7, which on the day, although I had a lovely day's fishing, to be honest, on the day it was 20 points, which is my dropper.
Yeah. So just to be clear then, out of the 6 matches, you can drop one.
You can drop one,
So that was your first one. Like you say, it's not a bad result, £7. But obviously fished a bit better on the day. And,
that's right.
So you dropped that one. So what about the second round then?
Well, the second round, the river had come up slightly, and I drew a good peg, long walk, 118 at the top of Hawks Patch. It's got some barbel form, some chub form, and a lot of small fish on there, and perch as well. So a decent draw. But with the river up, it was going to be a bit challenging for a lot of people. But I've been doing a bit of work on the centerpin fishing because
I remember this because I loved it when I spoke to you and I saw your Facebook report on the match. Because we should say you won the match, didn't you?
Yeah, I won the match.
And what weight did you have?
I had 42 pound, which I think was the best weight in the league.
So you've had a phenomenal day's fishing.
Oh, amazing! But
I think you surprised a few people with the tactics.
Oh, yeah.
Not the tactics to catch the barbel and chub on the float. So tell us a bit about that.
Well, basically the peg, apart from a very small slack inside by a bit of a bush, it's quite shallow. It's usually set your stall out for days, so it's only probably 3 foot, 3.5 foot on the day with a bit of water on that. Is nice, comfortable platform, and I'd set everything up, the usual whips and a bit of sort of perch stuff for down the side. But I thought, this centerpin business could work here because I'd been putting a lot of effort into.
Was there a bit of water on, or was there was a bit of water on, so you got a bit of pace?
Very pacey, very shallow, and of course with a shallow peg that's pacey, the bottom is moving a lot slower than the surface.
Sure.
So if you can slow your float right down. So anyway, I set the centerpin up and started a few normal methods, caught a few fish, but not really going anywhere fast. So I'll put the centerpin up, and the key is to overshot your float. Just keep adding shot until you are going through a third of the pace.
And is that actually taking line off? I think we should show you centerpin.
Right.
Is that actually taking line off the centerpin?
Yes.
Directly, or are you controlling it as well?
No. This is the same model of centerpin that John Dean used to great effect.
I'm going to try and hold that forward to the camera so people can see it. I know it's not easy to see, but
I think they were a small batch made by Rolls-Royce engineers, and it took me about 12 months to actually find one.
Wow.
And the secret to this, although it spins fairly free, it's nowhere near as free spinning as a normal centerpin, which I thought at first
was your priority.
Well, I thought it was a bad thing, but actually it isn't, because the float draws it off. Okay. You're not having to control it that much.
Do you have the line coming off the bottom or the top?
I have it coming off the bottom.
Okay.
On the day I was using 8 pound edge floating line, because obviously you could encounter a barbel or something, so various hook lengths we used, but no, the line comes off the bottom. On the day it was just a little flick just to get it moving, just to toss the float out. So I don't do any of this drawing the line, but I can actually cast off the reel. Well, I know, because obviously I know I've known you for a long time, and you've always kind of tinkered and enjoyed fishing with a centerpin. Yeah. And I just wonder, this must be the first, well, I can't think of anybody else that's won a match on the Severn or our local circuit for a long time with a centerpin. No,
but in the past, that was the method, wasn't it? On the Trent. You mentioned John Dean. Quite funnily, our great friend Colin Harvey. Yeah. I know Colin a couple of years ago won his section on the Wye, fishing on a very cold day, powerful peg, where he could slow his bait down.
That's it, yeah.
So, I think you've proved that perhaps it's still a place for this type of fishing.
Well, what really got me into them, I got this book here. It's a fantastic book if anybody does stick float fishing. It's all the old stick float anglers, your John Deans, your Dave Thomas, Pete Rice, have all contributed a chapter in there. It's just an amazing book.
It was written by Jim Baxter, wasn't it?
Written by Jim Baxter.
Mastering the Essential River Float, Stick Float Wizardry.
That's right. But I read in depth John Dean's chapter and Dave Thomas. Well, Dave Thomas won the World Championships with a centerpin. And also John Dean, although he had 507s and Mitchell matches or whatever, when the river was up, he always had a centerpin set up. And I thought, do you know what? This being a float only, I've got to try and master this method because it could help me out. Yeah. And obviously on the day,
You had a
little bit of practice. Wow! I started off catching. I overshotted the float, and obviously as well you have to fish over depth because obviously the angle you're holding it back.
Yeah.
And just a lot of tinkering about, and then feeding casters and some bits of worm as well. Chopped dendrobina. I caught a couple of good big perch, a couple of big roach, some big dace, and I thought, yeah, this is going well. And then I had a barbel, I think about £6. And I thought, flipping hell, this is just
that must
amazing.
Have been quite fun.
Oh yeah, it is. Well, I leave the handles on. A lot of people that just fish for roach take the handles off.
Yeah.
But you need the handles on for playing a barbel.
Yeah.
But it's a smooth way of playing.
And would you say it took any longer to land the fish?
No, definitely not. No? Definitely not. No. And then once I'd got sort of double figures, I then stepped the bait up because obviously with barbel they're greedy fish. Fed a few more worms. And used 2 bits of dendrobine, not on a massive hook, 13 to 018, something like that, and 020, just went up from a 15.
And that's a day I don't think you'll ever forget.
Oh no, I had 4 barbel and £15 of other fish for £42, so and a match win, so 50 points on the board.
Absolutely mega.
Yeah, brilliant.
So I think that's a great story and quite an interesting topic really when you think about using a centre pin. So moving on then, so the next peg you were on was 48.
Yeah, 48. I think again there was a little bit of water on. I'm trying to remember, but anyway, 48. The end of the deeps, the flow comes down the inside more. It is a bit of a difficult area, 48 and 50, because you get double banked by a lot of people fishing the BAA opposite.
Yeah.
But thankfully 48, I wasn't double banked, and it just looked a dream to fish down the edge with a small bollo, 1.5 bollo.
Yeah.
And I knew there was bleak, so my basic thing was to combine bleak fishing because they're big bleak on there. You don't catch many, but they're worth catching. And some perch, hopefully, perch and roach on the bollo, and maybe some roach on hemp and tares later on a waggler.
I love it, and it's that mix again, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's a mix
mixing it up,
of methods and species to really maximise. So you could have just fished for big fish.
Oh yeah,
and maybe as a gamble, that might pay off perhaps 2 out of 10 times.
That's right.
But you're playing the percentages, aren't you?
Oh, I'm trying to play. Looking for
you've ended up with £12.6, so that's a really respectable weight, and again, good points.
Yeah, I had a good run of decent perch and a fair amount of bleak. And bizarrely, after feeding hemp and tares all match, and this has happened to a lot of people, I've caught 2 big roach, sort of 12 ounce apiece, thinking I'm going to have a fantastic last hour, but I just caught the 2. Yeah. But ended up with good points. 41 points. So anything above 40 is top 10. Brilliant. So made up off that draw. Not a real noted peg, so that was good result off there.
Great. So what about the next round then?
Next round was 98. A good draw, the pipe, at the end of Wintertime, very shallow, running onto a forger, the end peg above the the bypass bridge.
Yeah.
It's one of them pegs that it can be brilliant for chub on the day. Sometimes there's some barbel, but there's always a few little dace and small fish on there. And again, with a couple of good results, didn't want to gamble too much. I could have set 2 wagglers up, fished down the middle all day, and could have had 20 or 30 pound, but I could have
could have
come undone.
Yeah.
So anyway, there was dace there, and if the dace are there, I was playing on my £3 an hour sort of thing. And I was expecting to catch in amongst the dace because I fished a light stick float and a whip. When the whip started to die off, I fished just past it with a light stick float, and I was expecting to catch a few chublets or perch to boost me up a bit. This didn't happen, but the small dace and bleak, they were small fish. I mean, I caught hundreds of them, and they kept coming. And then coming into the last hour, it started to peter out a little bit. I started to feed some meat down the middle. I had a meat waggler. Obviously, fishing maggots when there's so many small fish around wouldn't work. And I tried it on and off in the last hour. Nothing happened. And then I had a £3 chub with 15 minutes to go, which got me up to £16.12. So £13 of these small fish.
Yeah.
which a lot of people will have ignored.
Still would have got you good points, but that chub has boosted you. That extra £3, I should imagine, has boosted you.
Yeah, but bizarrely, that I weighed in £16 and I was absolutely thought I'm guaranteed top 10 with that. But amazingly, I come 15th.
Wow.
It just shows how the form of the river on that day.
I remember talking to you at the time, and was there a bit of water on and it was overcast? It was definitely overcast.
It was a good day. I don't think there was water on, but it was overcast.
Yeah,
and a lot of people caught a lot of chub.
Yeah.
And
because I think we'd had quite a dry, bright period, and that changing conditions.
That's right.
Obviously triggered it.
That's right. Yeah.
Just showing what a phenomenal venue it is.
Yeah, and I came away scratching my head, thinking, well, should I fish for chub all match? But it was 36 points, so usually we reckon the people that fish the league regular, a 36 point, 35, 36 is a counter, basically. Yeah. You can count that as long as your other results are good.
Brilliant. So you got another good result
under
your belt.
Yeah.
So where do we go next then?
So next, 118, a fantastic draw on the day. The river had come up. 118 is an okay peg down the bottom of Winterdyne. The river had come up. I'd got a big slack, and I usually where I was fishing you would be sat there on your box, but the river up, it was probably 3.5, 4 foot, not really going anywhere. And I thought, right, this is good. I really quite fancied it, and I thought I'll kick off. Unusually for me, with a bit of ground bait.
Yeah.
I think a few years ago, Clive Branson on one of the pegs at the top caught some nice roach fishing ground bait, and I thought, I'll put some Baitek extra in. Not a lot, a nice binding ground bait, a few casters and some dead maggots, just a couple of balls. Start over the top. Only a point, like a Warwickshire Avon pole rig, really. 0.8 gram, really. Pretty. Anyway, went in and I got a flying start. I caught probably £3 of roach. The roach seemed to really like that ground bait. I found that a few times. I got £3 of roach in the first hour. I thought, what a start. I had visions of catching £20 of roach, but that soon sort of petered out. And then I was in a bit of dilemma. I was thinking, should I start putting worms in? And I thought, Steve, there's only an hour gone. Just hold back a bit, you know. Don't rush into anything, because you can kill your peg doing that. So I carried on, and I was only on, I think I was on an 010 to a 20 or something like 560 for these roach and stuff. Anyway, it went quiet, went under, and I hooked something big, and it bottomed the elastic out. I was only on a 6, got it out, and it was a perch about £2.5. I thought, flipping hell, that's £5.5, £6. Wow, this is unbelievable. And then you're in the dilemma: do I change up a bit now? Do I? And then I had a couple of other small fish, and I thought, no, just stick at what you're doing. Then I had another perch, about the same size, well, £2. I thought, amazing. And then it completely went, and it was just odd small fish. There was, bizarrely enough, although the river was up, there was no real amount of bleak to catch. So I went out a little bit further on a flat float. I think it was about a 15 gram flat float, just into the flow with some worms. And bizarrely, in the flow, expecting chub, I caught another perch. So we got 3 big perch.
Yeah.
And then it went a bit quiet again, and I just nicked odd fish. And then right at the end, 20 minutes to go, on my light rig again, I had a chub £3. Which was just amazing.
So what's that got you a total there?
Wow, it got me £14 and 47 points.
Wow.
And looking back at that day, you know, I've had some good pegs. There have been the right pegs on the right day, which that one was, nice slack. But I've also been fortunate these bonus fish have stayed on.
How you approached it, you've been quite cautious and careful.
Yeah.
And I kind of think it's interesting to reference the flat floats, because obviously flat floats are something that we all use on rivers.
Yeah.
But on the float only league, it becomes so critical, doesn't it?
Yes.
Because obviously you can't ledger or feeder fish.
No.
If there was water on. And it kind of leads us into the last round, which was on Wednesday, wasn't it?
Yeah, Wednesday.
So perhaps you want to just reference that when you're talking about the...
Yeah. I mean, the flat floats, it's something I've had to learn a few new methods. The centre pin, because encountering the river when it's up, it's float only.
Yeah.
So you need to take that into account, and the better anglers, your Ian Hughes and Joe Holloways and people like that, have started to use the flat floats and get some absolutely excellent results with it. Something I'm not really done that much of, but knew it was something I'd got to learn, and I'd also got to equip myself with the right size floats. Interestingly, on one of the float onlys, in heavy water, Ian Hughes caught just under 40 pound a barbel on I think it was a 40 gram flat float, and I had a chat to him afterwards, and he said, yeah, I needed 40 gram, but I left me 50 at home, and a 50 would have been even better.
I'm guessing that's going back to Ian's international experience.
Oh, yeah.
Fishing in world championships on a variety of different venues. So.
Yeah, he's so comfortable with that method.
Yeah, because like me personally, obviously, if you're fishing a normal river match, you'd perhaps fish a pole feeder.
That's right, you would,
You can't do that.
No.
And I think sometimes it causes a bit of controversy, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I think, and I think you all agree, as long as the float is fished correctly in terms of the weight is off the bottom.
That's right, yeah.
You're not, that's float fishing. There's no argument in my mind.
It's got to be involved in it because, Jeff Maguire, who runs the matches, he does an absolute brilliant job. But the thing is with a 7, if it comes up, it can be out for 2 or 3 weeks. So if the river's fishable on the float, he's got to fish the rounds, otherwise we'd never finish the league.
Sure.
So given the fact that that's the situation, I think everybody that fishes should learn to fish the flat float.
Yeah.
And the weight is off the bottom for it to fish properly.
Yeah.
It might have a couple of small droppers on the bottom.
Which is allowed in the World Championship.
Well, if you look, people say, oh, you might have a couple of shot on the bottom, but hang on, if you fish something like a specie wag, you're going to be dragging shot on the bottom, which is exacally the same. So,
well, anyway, we're in agreement about that. So tell us about the last match, which was just on Wednesday. The river was quite up, wasn't it? And
yes.
What peg have you drawn?
I've drawn 94.
Okay.
Which, just the last couple of pegs, obviously I was on 98, which is almost a ford at the end. I don't think they put 98 in with the river up.
Yeah, sure.
They come back up a couple. So I was probably the next nearest, I think 96 was in, so I was the next nearest peg to that ford. So obviously I thought there's a very good chance that there's some barbel or chub going to move up from there and be in this area. But again, the way I fish is the same. I had a little slack, and it was a little one. It was probably, 13, 14 foot out. Small slack, shallow. I thought, I don't want to be emptying a load of bait in straight off. Let's just see what's in, because there's been some odd bream caught. There's all big perch. Let's just see what happens. Anyway, again, I kicked off with some bit of ground bait, and I caught, I would say 30 fish the first hour. A couple of little roach, small fish. Do I go in yet? No. Hold back. Just give it time. Probably 25, 30 fish the second hour. So I thought, well, I got probably £2 to £3, but it's not happening. I'm not really going anywhere. But that £2 or £3 could be helpful later on. So went on the flat float, not very far out. There's a bit of you're in between two bushes on that peg. So went on the flat float and messed about. It just, for me, who's inexperienced, it takes a lot of messing about to find the right float, whereas somebody like Ian would be straight in, they'd know pretty much looking at the water what they need. But anyway, 25 gram seemed about right. And pouring with rain, absolutely pouring with rain. I went in with a decent sized dropper, couple of them with meat, 6mm pellets and a lot of hemp, and put them in, and I thought, right, could be a long wait. Shipped out, piece of meat on the hook, put the pole between my legs and sitting there with the rain drenching everything apart from my Gore-Tex. I was okay, I was dry myself. And float's gone under. It all happens in a split second, and you've done it, James. Float goes under, you lift the pole, and the elastic's streaming out, and my legs are knocking. To be honest, it's not something I do that often, and obviously
playing a barbel on the pole, it is exciting, isn't it?
Oh, it's amazing.
It doesn't matter how many times you've done it. Yeah.
I think I was about 6 sections out, so I was adding sections as it went out to the middle. Got the pole above it, and then it's just circling. I wasn't, because I hadn't caught many, I wasn't even sure what size it was. And I thought, take your time, you know, you've got probably £3. So anyway, it wasn't that big, it was probably £4. And I thought, yeah, £7. £7 is still going to be good on a flooded river.
Definitely.
So I went out and nothing much happened really. And no indications, nothing. I tried chopping a few lobworms and swapping about, and I held back a little bit on the feeding because I knew it wasn't going to be a day of a lot of fish, but then I sort of got to the point, well, no, you know, give it another big hit. You know, a lot of this emp and bits of meat are being gnawed by whatever's swimming about. Give it another big hit, 2 big droppers, went in again, and this time the float went under and the pole was being dragged round, and I thought it was going to be a big barbel, but it wasn't, and it fought really hard as well, but it was a chub, probably £3, £3.5, so I'm thinking, yeah, that's £10 now. Now, I'm not coming off this method now, it's just not even worth it. And yeah, so again, I left it a while, nothing happened, give it another big hit, and then quarter of an hour, 20 minutes before the end, had another barbel, which was probably £5, give me a total of just over £13.
Absolutely amazing.
Which I was absolutely made
like
up with.
45 points, so...
Yeah, 45 points, yeah.
Which is mega. And I mean, you wouldn't know it at the time, because I guess you're your competitors at the top of the league, you wouldn't know how they've done, you've got back. And in the end, you have actually won the league quite convincingly, haven't you?
By some margin, yeah. I was quite surprised because I was actually in 3rd place when you count your 5, but I knew I'd got to drop a 20, which always puts you, a low score, always puts you in a good position. Sure. And when I got back, I found out I'd got 45 points, which is just mega for me on the day, and I was soaked through, but I was so happy. But I soon realised I'd won, and 219 points. Jeff Briley was second on 210.
And Jeff won it last year. And Jeff is just so consistent. I mean, not just on the 7, pretty much anywhere he fishes. On the Y at the moment, he's so consistent. Jeff
not only won the float only last year, but he also won the Bewdley Festival. To win the 2 biggest competitions on that venue in 1 year is amazing. Like you say, on the Y as well, he won the individual.
He won the individual on the Y League, and he's always up there. So, you know, hats off to Jeff. And then 3rd was Joe Holloway, and Joe's another local
who's exceptionally good, you know, and you've got a lot of good locals that fish it. But there's a lot of people travel a long way. There's the Welsh people that come, the contingents from Wales, you know, Ian Hughes and Clive Branson and a few others, even Dave Finnis from down south, and a lot of people travel a long way to fish this. So to win it, you know, it's just absolutely over the moon, you know.
Well done, Steve. I could hear it in your voice when I spoke to you after the match, and thanks for doing this interview, quite a comprehensive, detailed interview.
Well, yeah, it's interesting.
I think it's fascinating, and I just love your approach and mentality of trying to catch what you can and looking at the match at 5 hours. Because sometimes it's easy to try and get things too quickly. And then ruin the rest of your day. So I think that just shows a lot of experience. And you've obviously spent a lot of time refining these methods with your style. That's what you have to do, isn't it? You can't.
You have your own style. Everyone's got their own style. No one fishes the same. No one. Even going back to this book on stick float fishing, these people are masters of it, but they all fish different.
Yeah, sure.
You know,
I think that's a fascinating thing. So well done, mate.
Cheers,
Congratulations. James. And we should really thank the organisers.
Wow. Out of the year, the festival and the float only have got to be the 2 finest things that I fish. Jeff Maguire does an absolute amazing job, works so hard.
The club's the KDA, isn't it?
The club, the KDA, they've got quite a few helpers. They do an amazing job as well.
You've got Jeff on the results?
Jeff Briley on the results. Well, the thing is, some people take that for granted, but it's so good to get up the next day and see everything in a really organised fashion where you've done, you know exactly what you've done, what everybody else has done, where they've been. And the venue is so, as I've said before, the venue is so varied, it makes every match interesting.
Well, fantastic. Well done. And all I can say really is good luck for next year. I know you'll be a real force. So.
Well, yeah.
And I probably should get us another pint of hooky.
Yes.
I've been getting through.
Cheers, James.
Well done,
brilliant.
mate.
Thank you very much.